So it's a mixed picture. It's better than it was in, under medieval Christianity, but it's a very mixed picture. The gentleman says freedom of speech is preserved in Islamic holy texts, and he then went on to quote the saying, or the verse, whoever saves one human life saves the whole world. That actually is in Jewish holy texts, and that's where it comes from. And in Jewish holy texts, it is not qualified in a way.
It is in the Quran, in the Holy Quran. It is mentioned specifically.
I didn't say it wasn't. I didn't say it wasn't, but I'm going on to say it's qualified. It is qualified. If you read the subsequent verses, it is qualified. In Jewish holy texts, it is not qualified. But that's not quite the point, is it? That's not quite the point. The point is that there are people who interpret the religion in this particular way. Now, I suspect that they interpret it because there are other verses and other sources in Islamic holy texts which mandate the protection of the religion. Is that not the case? And I suspect that those verses take precedence over the sources that this gentleman is referring to about freedom of speech. Because that's the way religions work. You take one source and you take another source, they say different things. The problem is how these sources are calibrated and organized and what authority each of them has in relation to the other. And that, I think, is a problem that we're talking about here. And as for insulting Islam being freedom of speech, whereas insulting Jews is called anti-Semitism, and insulting Jews is called anti-Semitism, I'm afraid this is a category error. Anti-Semitism is not an insult. It is not an insult. Anti-Semitism is the desire to eradicate Jews. It is a hatred of Jewish people. It is a hatred of the Jewish religion. It is not an insult. Jews are insulted all the time, actually. Jews are subject to anti-Semitic discourse all the time. The problem, the fact is, and also Christians are insulted all the time, especially in Britain. Christians are insulted with impunity. The point is that neither Christians nor Jews kill anybody in response. Anti-Semitism on university campuses. It's very difficult to compare and contrast, isn't it? It seems to me that what you have here is qualitatively different from what we have in Britain, in that it is more aggressive and more violent. I may be wrong, but it's been out of control here, it seems to me, for quite some time. In Britain, as so often in Britain, it's all much more kind of mannered. People are anti-Semitic. They're much more polite anti-Semites in Britain. However, there is a problem on campus in Britain. It's a problem that arises around Israel societies and Jewish societies. And it's getting worse. And it's not just around the student body. It's also in among university teachers who mark students down if they write the wrong thing about the Middle East in their university essays. By the wrong thing, I actually mean the right thing. And that you have here also. I know a little about it because I've spoken on campuses and I've spoken with people who've been trying to counter it on campuses, and I know that you have a big problem here with faculty as well as students. So it is a problem that's increasing on in university campuses generally, I think. Whether it's worse here or worse in Britain or Europe is not quite the issue. It's a bad thing wherever it happens.
Would you agree that in the struggle over so-called terrorism, that the battle of ideas between our civilization and jihadists is as or more important than the special forces and the airplanes and the soldiers and the tanks and so on? Just as in the Cold War, Ultimately, it was our ideas that were as important. Freedom and democracy, as opposed to tyranny of the Soviet Union, was as or more important than the accoutrements of war. And what is making our elites turn against the values of Western civilization that has produced the greatest increase in the quality of human life, in prosperity, in freedom of human rights in the last 200 or 300 years, more than the last thousands of years of all human history.
My name is Shirley Ballou, and I have a question, kind of getting away with some of this other, but what does the United Nations, what is their role playing in all that's going on in the world today? And my second question is, England showing any advancement of Christianity in your country? And I would like to say the Jews have been punished enough, leave them alone.
Okay, so gentleman asks whether the battle of ideas is more important than military activity, as in the Cold War we defeated communism by ideas. I'm not sure we did defeat communism by ideas, actually. I think it kind of blew up under the impetus of its own contradictions. But that's a matter for discussion. I absolutely take the point that the battle of ideas is absolutely central. Unless we rediscover collectively the ideas that we all once shared in the West of what our values are, then we are never going to win this thing that we are fighting, because it is basically a battle of civilizational ideas. It is one idea, one civilization's idea against another civilization's idea. And if we've lost the idea, if we've lost the understanding of what our idea is, then clearly we aren't going to win it. But I don't see it as an either-or. I think that the military battles are actually terribly important. And the trouble is that we have become inept at waging military battles. Perhaps we always were inept. But I mean, when you look at the complete disaster of the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns, then that is the problem. You know, if you're going to go to war, and if you're going to expend blood and treasure and the lives of our young people in going to war, you better make damn sure that you get your strategy right. And there wasn't actually a strategy. But does that mean that it was wrong to have gone to war in Iraq and Afghanistan? Again, these are separate issues and separate discussion, but I would say absolutely not. It was right to go to war, that we went to war because we realized that there was an enemy which had to be defeated on the battlefield in order to remove him from being a threat to us. There's no other way of removing him. And similarly with Islamic State, as I said before, Islamic State's very existence has been this galvanic, has had this galvanic effect on Muslim radicalization in Britain and elsewhere in Europe. The only way to stop that radicalization is to destroy Islamic State, not contain it, not degrade it, destroy it, because it has to be shown to be absolutely defeated. So, and you can only do that through military might. And so it's neither one, it's not one or the other, it's both. But certainly the battle of ideas is terribly important. Why are elites turning against the West? Well, you know, this is an enormous discussion. I touched on it earlier. Partly because the intelligentsia of the West has basically been suborned by subversive ideas, which I believe were part of the Cold War. I believe that the Soviet Union may have been defeated, it may have disintegrated with the fall of the Berlin Wall, but my goodness me, it has succeeded in what it set out to do, which was capture the citadels of the culture, and in Britain nowhere more has it had a success than that. They've gone down like ninepins. But there are other reasons why the elites have turned against the West, which are more immediately obvious. guilt over, its colonial past. And also, I think, actually, something in Europe died badly. I mean, it went badly wrong with the First World War, and it died with the Holocaust. And I think what died, and this is what really alarms me, what died was the very notion of modernity. Because, you had Germany, which was, it was a sort of quintessence of the Enlightenment. It was a cultured society. It was a society devoted to reason. It was, in its own mind, and many people admired it for this, it was a sort of pinnacle of reason and civilization. And that's what it produced. That's what it produced. It produced the Holocaust. And I think Europe generally looked at that and said, something's gone badly wrong. I don't think anyone articulated it in these words or in these terms, but I think that Europe became very demoralized. That, the acme of reason, Europe, had produced this horror. And I think that it just sort of lost the plot. It lost the idea of the nation. It lost the idea of its culture. And what was the culture? The culture of Mozart and Goethe and Schiller. Hello, that's what that produced. And I think we haven't recovered from this. We have not recovered.